couple of weeks, Trump has had some major W's that we are going to break down real quick. Trump was pretty much the one that coined the phrase fake news and called out the bias in the news, etc. But it looks like he's starting to substantiate some of the claims that he's making. TR, what are your thoughts on this settlement with ABC?
Yeah, this is an amazing situation with Trump though, because he, they were wrong, or at least with this George Stephanopoulos. He's a journalist that got ABC in trouble, or journalists. It's always amazing to me how these folks used to be about having journalistic integrity, and now we're finding out that they do not have any integrity, at least when it comes to Trump or anything Republican related or conservative in most cases. So him winning this is a great sign that the media has to start playing ball and start calling balls and strikes down the middle, because they say something wrong, they know Trump is going to come after them. And with ABC bending the knee because Trump accepted the settlement, that's telling me that they did not want to have like what happened with Fox News when they had that. I think it was the Dominion case where they lost almost like $1 billion, and a lot of people got fired because of that deal. So, and some of this, the settlement money is coming out of George Stephanopoulos' paycheck, or at least they negotiated down his salary. So these journalists, they got to be a little more mindful of what they're saying, and it proves that Trump was telling the truth about something. Like, they're slandering him on TV, and had he lost the election, maybe I don't think ABC would have went to a settlement like, hey, prove it in court. But they obviously knew that it was against them and that they didn't want like $1 billion lawsuit, because that's really gonna get people fired.
Yeah, and George, I'm going to butcher his last name, Stephanopoulos. I hope I said that right.
Mhm.
He accused Trump of rape
Yeah.
multiple times.
Yep.
And we talked about last week, like if you're going to make an accusation like that, you better make sure you substantiate it, because that's a permanent stain if
Yep.
true. And that was pretty much how Trump secured this victory here. Now, some of the people that don't like Trump will probably push back and say, okay, they settled because they just wanted this to go away. They didn't want to lose their credentials to the White House during his term or whatever. But if you are so stuck on what you did and that it was the right thing and you have proof and evidence, why did you settle? Why didn't you try to fight? That's the part that I'm kind of stuck with. And then the other piece is clearly most media outlets lean left, at least in the United States, they
Yeah.
do. If I want to hear any perspective from the other side, I either have to go to Fox News or I have to go to some person who's not in the United States that's active in U.S. politics and give me their perspective. And there's no balance there. If I'm listening to a newscast or even a moderator in a debate, it shouldn't be obvious to me whose side you're on. And
Yeah.
we saw multiple times during this election season that was not the case. Everybody was pushing for Kamala Harris, and they were throwing her softball questions, and they were throwing everything that they could at Trump. And he stood tall. Like, man, that's all I can say. He stood tall, and he's beating his enemies right now.
Yeah. And he has another lawsuit that's came out, I want to say around the same time when this settlement came out, though, where he's going after the poll, essentially the guru poll maker in Iowa, because leading up to the election results in Iowa, news came out that Kamala has a chance to win Iowa. And I want to say Iowa's been conservative. I don't know the exact how long it's been conservative, but it's been for a while. And with her, with that lawsuit, he is saying that there was some election interference there, because there was no reason for her. Even she was on record saying, the pollster, she was on record saying that, hey, I don't know why my results they say what they say, that Donald Trump will probably win. Well, what she didn't factor in is that people were not going to buy the media hype or some of the BS the media has been saying about Donald Trump, which we did see that play out in the popular vote. So with that said, though, yeah, a lot of these media companies and people that interact with the media, or at least in official capacity, they're gonna have to be mindful. They're gonna have to like make sure they're not slandering Trump. I bet you money you might see something from the View come. I mean, well, the View, what they've been doing is that they make a gaffe. They have lawyers on call, and they say, "Hey, legal note," which is Sonny Holston, who does a lot of legal notes. on that network. So maybe the
Which
view
is
was,
funny because she's an attorney.
yeah, exactly. You would think she'd be a little bit more careful with her words, but obviously not. So I wonder if we'll see something happen with Matt Gaetz, though, because we didn't have time to add this, though. But the Matt Gaetz situation, this is the thing about I don't understand about like in America and specifically men, where somebody will say these slanderous things about you. You have a right to defend yourself. You have a right to take them to court. And there's no shame in taking them to court though, because they're lying to you. So if you do have like a legal a result against you, they have to report it correctly. And if they don't want to report it, and also ABC had to apologize to Trump as well too for calling him a rapist. But essentially, which you know, I don't understand like people don't understand about that though, because essentially anybody can say anything against you. And when you are saying Trump shouldn't be able to do this, or he's trying to control the media, or he's trying to make the media afraid, blah, blah, blah. No, they've been lying for a while, and this is how it works for everybody else. And so this just should be a thing that's seen as, okay, well, at least at the end of the day, I don't like that Trump, won his judgment. But at the very least, that, if there's some defamation situations going on, you can take them to court and win a settlement there.
Yeah, so the Iowa lawsuit is a bigger deal to me because if he's successful in that, him and his team have been saying for years that there's been election fraud. And
Yeah.
a lot of people believe that too. It's almost split down the middle if you talk to people, like regular everyday people. But if he's successful in this lawsuit, it's going to open the door for other states. And now we're talking about a situation where we could potentially lose faith in the voting system in the United States. And
Yeah.
that's going to be chaotic. So I'll be paying attention to that one too.
Well,
But yeah.
for most of us, we already knew there were some shenanigans happening. And so I'm just going to briefly dip my toe in it. But, the 2020 was a weird situation, though, because, and I'm only going to say this, it's weird that about 12 to 15 million votes did not show up for the election, which I have yet to hear anyone from the left complain like, what happened to those 12 to 15 million votes that went for Joe Biden? You're telling me people like Joe Biden more than Kamala? Then they should have kept Joe Biden on the ticket, because no matter whichever excuse they come up with, it's going to make them look bad. So why didn't those 12 to 15 million people show up? That's what I want to know.
I'm not ready to buy that one.
Which
Look, Kamala, these you said 15 million that showed up for Joe that didn't show up for Kamala.
Yeah.
So I think they stayed home. That's what I think. I think that they were so unhappy with how the Dems have been moving, who they've been pushing up lately. And this is the Dems' fault. They didn't read the rooms. She was never popular. She was only popular with Black women. Nobody else liked her. And they knew it when she tried to primary the first time. She was one of the first ones out of there in the pool. And then they tried to push her up again because they know Black women carry the party. But then they said, okay, we're going to ride with Black women this time. We don't care what everybody else thinks. And that's exactly what happened. So I think it's Dem delusion. I don't think it's any conspiracy with hidden votes or anything like that. I think people.
I guess let me correct it. So when I say the conspiracy thing, I'm saying either those people hated Kamala or those votes didn't exist. That's my conspiracy. Like I said, got to be careful.
So you're saying one of these things are true, definitely.
Yeah, well, one of these things happened. So, and the crazy thing is, the liberal media, the leftist media, they don't even bring this up. They don't have this conversation. It's like they just, hey, no big deal. I'm like, where did those votes go? Because if they have to admit that the votes were there, so if you legitimize the votes, then you have to say that Kamala was a terrible candidate.
Yes. Look, man, the Dems are completely delusional and in denial about this. They're still blaming everybody but themselves for this last election. And what's the California governor's name? I always forget.
Gavin Newsom.
So he's to me, I think they're going to try to push him forward, but he kind of put his foot in his mouth this week. I don't know if you saw this, but California is finally they're cracking down on these thefts. So, people are just going in big flocks and just stealing a whole bunch of stuff. Officer Tatum, who's another Black dude who leans right that I kind of listened to a little bit, he did a clip where there were two black women who got arrested, and they were like, "Yeah, I know this is a felony now based on this new law we just passed." And they didn't know that. They thought it was just going to be a misdemeanor and catch and release like
Spot from
California's
risk.
been doing. But the reason why I'm calling out Gavin Newsom was he made the statement, "This can't be the California that I'm in charge of. How could y'all vote for this? This is going to hurt black and brown people." So
They are.
essentially, you're implying that we're the only ones that's out here stealing stuff.
Yeah.
And this is what the Dems do. They're racist in a different kind of way. It just doesn't look the way that people think what racism looks like.
Yeah.
They just think we need a lot of hand holding and are dumb and stupid and can't think for ourselves.
Yeah, they talk down to us. They imply that we're not, especially with voter ID. They imply that we're not smart enough to have our license when we go in to vote, or they use us as a sympathetic figure to move whatever specialty project that they have, which is really most cases just a some money laundering scam in most cases. And in my opinion, I think it's some type of scam, especially with Gavin Newsom's homelessness project, where they received over like a couple $1 billion back in 2010. They have nothing to show for it. This is Gavin Newsom. If he's the party, if he gets the party nomination, this is going to be a cakewalk for Republicans for the next 2 election cycles. So they're already talking about pushing Kamala out there, but for the next 2 election cycles, it's going to be bad news for them. So they definitely have to blow up the party though, but they won't though, because they're still afraid of the progressives. And they can't let the reign. They don't want the progressives to get the reign of the party because they'll never get it back.
So while we're on the subject of the W's that Trump has had over these last weeks, you want to flip over to that other story?
Oh yeah.
So essentially, just so you all know, and I'm sure some of you know this and some of you don't, and I'm probably going to butcher this name too, Masayoshi's son, who's one of the richest people in Japan, he's the CEO of SoftBank Group, has committed to investing $100 billion in the United States and creating at least 50,000 jobs within the next 5 to 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So he specifically said that he sat down and he talked with, and I think this goes back to the tariff conversations we had. I said from the jump that Trump was going to leverage tariffs in our large consumer markets to bring jobs back to the United States. And immediately after he started talking about tariffs, what happened? Mexico wanted to meet and have a conversation. Canada wanted to meet and have a conversation. And now we have situations like this. Japan is an ally to the United States. But have you ever seen any Fords or Chevys or GMC trucks or cars sold in Japan? No, because they charge tariffs and they make it much more difficult for U.S. cars to be sold in Japan.
Which is also another reason why the U.S. has a chokehold on the Ford, or why the Ford hasn't even really changed. The Ford truck hasn't even really changed that much over the last several decades.
Yeah. So, and all I'm saying is, why the Dems are sitting here talking about emotional issues, and the Republicans have been talking about economic ones, which will ultimately help with all these other issues.
Mm-hmm.
I think Trump is putting people on notice that, look, we got bad deals with all of y'all. And he's mentioned this with NATO too. He's like, we're doing the majority of the heavy lifting with NATO. It's time for y'all to pay up and provide y'all fair share. We're not going to keep letting people draw money from us anymore. Y'all got to pay some of this back. And I appreciate stuff like this. And while we're on this subject, have you heard anything from our current president and vice president? Because I know what J.D. Vance has been doing these last couple of weeks.
Man, this is the one thing I don't understand with people that supported Trump. Supported Biden, and then also people were trying, just recently put Kamala into the White House. We have yet to hear from any of them. We had that drunken rant from Kamala Harris, and then Biden. Anytime Biden, the last couple of things Biden has been doing has just been either pardoning his son, giving away billions of dollars even to like some corporation or some country that is going to turn into another money laundering scam. And he just commuted like a bunch of sentences, and some of those are very controversial as well too. But I know they can commute sentences and whatnot. All presidents do it, but it's like, come on, man. Like, no one else was worried of getting those sentences or having their sentence commuted, but it is what it is. So yeah, unfortunately, we have a absent president that's only doing some paperwork stuff that's creating problems. It's almost like he's hell bent on trying to create World War III, or at least create a mess going into this next election cycle. I mean, it was disclosed that the White House is trying to hire about 1,200 more DEI government employees. It's like, for what? This is like a complete waste. And this is why I can't wait for Doge to get in there and start telling the truth about, or unfortunately, people are going to lose their jobs, but it's like the US government is just completely mismanaged. And when you have like people just getting jobs based off of their, either their genitalia or their race, that's not right though, because I mean, for the most part, that's going to exclude definitely straight white men, and then it's going to exclude straight black men, and then you can kind of figure it out from there. But those are going to be the biggest losers from people in those jobs that they're trying to add though. So yeah, I don't know what is with Biden trying to create these or doing these last minute pet projects though, but we might have to look at a rule of trying to move up the inauguration date.
I'm gonna answer a question I asked earlier because I know some people are wondering. I said I know what JD Vance is doing right now too. He was in the Appalachia area, like the Carolinas and the West
Yeah,
Virginias. He was helping out those hurricane victims, and he even continued what he's been doing. He had an open Q&A session where people could ask any question they wanted, and he answered all the questions.
yeah,
Like I've never seen the type of direct communication, and I've told people I was never fully in on Trump. I thought he was a better choice than Kamala, but ultimately, what turned the ties for me was JD Vance. I'm convinced that he can probably do a lot more things for people collectively than Trump can, but I might be wrong. We'll see. But the bottom line is, I know what those two are doing. I don't know what the people who are currently in office doing.
yeah. It's always funny to me when people are like, well, what is JD Vance doing? Blah, 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 which we know what he's doing. But the funny thing, Kamala did nothing for almost 4 years until she got called up, or she was pushed upon the American people to be the president on the Democratic ticket. So
I
she
mean,
hasn't
she
did
was the
anything.
border czar, right? Didn't she do a good job with that?
Border czar, yes. So, but yeah, it's a good thing with Trump though, and hopefully he continued with these wins. We still got to get the nominations, his or confirmations of the people for his staff, but hopefully he can get everybody in.
And by the way, Forbes is saying that Kamala was never called the border czar. She was just put in charge of border issues. So we're just playing word salad at this point.
It works out. Yep. All right, next topic.